working. What year approximately?
The year I cannot get straight. I know I went up there twice. I think maybe Mother or Aunt Alice stayed with the kids, and I had a chance to go up and help him. And I had been up there just a day or two before it happened, and I don't know who was staying with the kids.
Well, where was he at?
He was up in the timber camp. It wasn't the one in Wyoming. It was up in Colorado somewhere in the mountains. I don't remember.
You know, I think I went with you.
Okay.
You mean the day it did? Well, you could have done that. I don't remember who was with me. I remember I was driving up Poudre Canyon. I just passed that business place there north of Fort Collins.
Now, where were you guys living at the time?
We were still in our 15-acre old farmhouse.
We were living between LaPorte, Colorado, and Fort Collins.
On 15 acres, you had dairy, Jersey cows, chickens.
Orchards, alfalfa fields. Lauren bought a 15-acre right next to us, so we had 30 acres.
Dad had a timber permit up in the mountains, way up.
He had bought a timber sale up there from another guy that owned it.
Oh.
And see, he had worked as a tie hack in a similar situation
in Wyoming.
when I was 4 or 5 years old up in Wyoming. So, but he cut the timber up there and he processed it some up there. Later on, he processed more and more down on our 15 acres.
And that's where the planer came in.
Well, the planer at that time, he was doing most of the processing up in the mountains, and the planer was up there.
That's right.
He had a cabin. You drove in, what, a mile or two on this little mountain track.
Down to the cabin.
And he had built this cabin. And then you kind of went up the hill and around, which wouldn't have been easy to drive. Probably would have taken, what, 20 minutes to walk or more?
I would guess.
Yeah. And that's where his planer and his sawmill, etc. were. And he was wearing gloves with gauntlets, and somewhere or another in pushing the board through, it caught, and it just took a section out.
He never had a feeling in his fingers after that.
They wanted to cut the two off, and he wouldn't let them. And they were there, but he always had to wear them covered because he couldn't tell if they were frozen. They were not. But anyway, that's the story there. And he walked or drove. He walked out from the planer down to the cabin with this hand. He'd wrapped it in something. Got in his truck, drove those, I don't know, couple of miles to the main road, flagged down a motorist, and all the time,
Had it wrapped in an old dirty blanket or something.
all the time, this. And when he saw our old 37 Ford truck coming up, or whatever it was,
Yeah, whatever it was.
he said, "Stop, stop." And he got out and flagged us down. And then we drove him down to the hospital and the doctor in
She's
Fort
got
Collins.
a tremendous memory.
Wonder where she gets it.
I don't know. Not for me.
Okay, so Mom, you might as well finish the story. So,
Well, it ended up that he had to have a skin graft. They did what they could in terms of repairing vessels, nerves, whatever. And actually, he had good use of the 3 fingers. He was right-handed. It was his right hand. And so what they did, oops. They made what's called a live skin graft. And they cut a flap and then sewed it. So he would, and that's the best way because it's his own skin.
His
And
own circulation.
when we say skin, we're talking about dermis as well as epidermis. And he was grafted and slung like this. And I don't know, Harvey could probably tell you how long, that would be necessary
Well, it was a few
for it
days.
to take. Oh, I
it
think it was more than a few days, but anyway.
that he had his belly. I mean, his hand sewed to his belly.
Yeah, I would say it was more like a week or two, but I don't know that.
I don't think it was quite that long, but you may be right. I don't remember.
However long it would take the tissue to heal. And when he left the camp, we had 3 horses up there. And the only reason I can think of to really get up there and get them back was that winter was pending and they could be snowed in. We had my little mare, Nellie, and Dad's saddle horse, Cutie. They could be grazed up there. It was cheaper than home. And then he had a skid horse, Buddy.
Buddy, that's
right. Buddy set me on my bum. Anyway, Buddy fell off of the bridge one time.
Buddy what?
Kicked him the bridge across Dry Creek when it was flooding. Remember, he kicked and went off it.
Didn't land on his feet.
Buddy had a disposition.
He had a disposition.
Anyway, he was the main skid horse. So we had to get those 3 horses, and Mom and I cannot remember whether Dad was still tied to his belly. I don't see how he could have.
Or whether it could have still been bandaged too, so
Yeah.
that he couldn't use it.
Either way, it was definitely not healed. It was as soon, if he had it loose, it was as soon as it got loose. And I can't imagine him doing what we did with it still being attached to his...
No, I can't either.
But
He can do remarkable things, so.
I know that it was not healed because I had to ride my smaller horse that had a trot that put you boom, 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 boom,
She
and
wasn't this.
lead Buddy
Oh.
down the mountain.
How far?
60 miles from Dad's camp where you turned off to where we lived.
So you do know where that camp was. You know where the road went, Dad?
I can see the trail from the cabin up to the sawmill.
So did you ride on the
Oh.
road? The road that you
Well,
could drive?
there was a paved highway
Okay.
from out of the camp after you got to the main road. That road went up to Laramie
Okay.
and down to Fort Collins. That was the road I herded cows on down by
Right.
LaPorte. And so Mom drove us up and we got the 3 horses. I don't remember the details of that. And then we started riding. And we made that all in one, no stop. Maybe I got to stop to pee, and
But
I
was
probably
it
got
on
some.
a gravel road then, or a trail down?
Once
Well,
we left the
or the
camp,
ditch?
once we left Dad's camp, we were riding on the shoulder
Okay.
of the highway
I got ya.
Yeah.
Okay.
and facing the upwards traffic.
Mhm.
I remember it was on the left side that we rode down the hill, down the mountain, and there was the Poudre River.
Was it
Yeah.
common that people would have horses back then? Or were you guys...
Well, 2 of those were up there just because there was grass up there. I mean, he had a timber camp, and we didn't have to feed him on our alfalfa field below.
But like, were horses used for skidding logs a lot?
Oh,
then?
yeah.
Yeah, they were still.
I've skidded logs with a horse.
They probably were using some mechanical devices, but Dad had horses, and that's the way in Wyoming years before he had skidded
Right.
logs.
This was only, he had bought this little private sale from the government, from this other guy. The other guy had it first, and we bought it. The cabin was already there and everything.
And you could log it, basically. You cut the trees down,
Yeah.
skidded them,
Mm-hmm.
and he used a
And
broad axe.
skidded them with the horse into the sawmill.
Okay, he
where
had a
they would
sawmill,
cut.
not
Yeah,
a broad
I'm not
axe.
sure that he used a broad
Right.
axe. I think he sawed the.
No,
the-
this was saw time,
Right.
sawmills.
So you get home, and what happens?
Well, first, I rode for 60 miles with my dad in the lead on his Cutie, which was a larger horse and which happened to be a horse that had a running walk. In other words, she wasn't a pacer, but she had this kind of gait that was like sitting in a rocking chair, and it motored right along. Well, my little horse either had to trot or I got left behind. And so while Dad sat in his rocking chair, of course with an injured hand, I sat bouncing for 60 miles. Well, somewhere down, probably halfway down the canyon or whatever, he took pity on me, and he actually led Buddy, who by that time was so tired he couldn't be mischievous.
But Buddy was awful rough too.
He led Buddy and guided Cutie, which with his left hand, and we made it all the way down. It was dark, I'm sure, by the time
I
we
think
got.
it probably was 60 miles.
When we got down there, Mom came out the house, and Dad, I remember, just said, "Take Carly and put her to bed. She's tired." That was an
Her butt's
understatement.
beat.
He put the horses away, took care of them with his one left hand and whatever this one would do, still bandaged. And
He
I-
never had